Hey. So, it's raining for the past few days a lot all morning. So I went to the gym just now, and not a lot going on. I was the only one there. So I've been doing a lot of mental training in the mornings and trying to get some done in the middle of the day, but really just trying to get my mental training as regimented and part of my training as I can, because I kind of let it drop out really easily, and I suffer for it. The consequences of being mentally weak are really intense. So I've been working on it, and I listened to this guy, Nee Shobo, who is a former NFL player for New Orleans, I think, but he has a really good podcast now. His website is called I'm Not You, and the name of his podcast is something like mental training or something. It's not super creative, but it's a really good podcast. And he just covers a lot in each episode. But I'm kind of piecing stuff together right now. Like, you know when you learn a new word and then you hear it everywhere? And you've probably heard it before, but because you just learned the definition of it, now that you recognize it, you're just hearing it all the time. You're like, how did I never hear this word before? It's like that when things start to snap, I think, with concepts or things that you find to be true. So I think that what I'm realizing right now is something that Nee's been saying in a few podcasts now, is that when you set goals, the way you set goals, the way you find them, and the way that you go for them is actually not like, I want to have this belt, or I want to do this playoff, or I want to have this many fights. You can set goals like that, that's fine. But the reason you have a goal and the thing that motivates you towards a goal is how it's going to make you feel. So you figure out what being champion would feel like, and then you actually try to accomplish that feeling rather than actually the goal of getting the belt or whatever the thing is, which resonates with me. Like that really seems right to me. So I was realizing that there's also a flip side to that, which is that not only is success or whatever your goal is or whatever the thing is a feeling, so is failure. So when you define failure, when you look at failure, it's really just a feeling. So you see these people who, if they lose a fight, they get really bummed out and they end up like apologizing to people online. And this guy Kim from Australia said of someone who was doing that years ago, he's like, he thinks anyone gives a shit whether he loses a fight, which Kim talks pretty straight. But at the same time, it was the first time I'd really heard it and thought about it, and I was like, people don't really care as much as you do. And the reason you care so much is because you're the one who has to feel it. So if you look at, someone who goes and has a huge opportunity or something, it makes sense to be like, I'm sorry I let you guys down. But people really are only upset if you lose a fight because of how it makes you feel. Like, they don't want you to feel that feeling of failure because it feels shitty. So for the most part, like recently I had to fight a friend, and I was told I didn't have to fight her, and then we ended up having to fight. I'd fought her twice before, and then our relationship grew in a way that we didn't want to fight each other anymore. And when we ended up fighting, I was not like, I don't want to fight her because I don't want to feel aggression, blah, 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 and all these things. Who cares? Like, I punch people in the face every day who I'm friends with. I didn't want her to feel that feeling of loss, and I didn't want to feel that feeling of loss. So really, failure is that feeling, and you're trying to avoid it. And so when you build up these emotional links to things that you're doing, you will work hard to avoid that feeling. And so if you don't like the feeling of being tired, you won't work hard because really you're trying to avoid the feeling of being tired. If you don't want to lose, you don't want to feel that feeling of losing. So you either need to change the way you feel, or you need to find a way to unhinge or unlink that feeling. So thinking about feelings, this kind of new level of my mental training was really kicked off by a podcast that has absolutely nothing to do with sports at all. I was listening to Last Podcast on the Left, which is three guys pretty much talking shit about murder and aliens and things like this. But they had a podcast on manifestos, and so they were talking about that Dick Elliott in LA. He's like the son of some producer who shot a bunch of people and killed himself and whatever. But when you listen to him talk, he's just got this horrible, like, privileged. He's just awful. But so they read part of his manifesto out loud, and they do a funny voice for him that actually sounds pretty close to what he actually sounds like. But I was listening to it on a trip to Laos when I was doing my visa run. So I was just kind of miserable and stuck in this van with a bunch of old men and really not happy. Just, like 9 hours up, 9 hours down, 6 hours at the border, all of the stuff that's very boring. And I found myself laughing so hard, and it really just broke through when they were doing this kid's voice, because they basically gave a comical voice to self-pity. And I know you're not supposed to feel self-pity, but it's a really, really seductive feeling, and a lot of people will go into it because if people aren't understanding how hard it is for you, you can feel sorry for yourself, and it's like, oh, well, at least I understand how hard it is, blah, blah, blah. So they were reading some diary entry from this kid, and he's talking about how he first realized how unfair life was because he would go to the skate park when he was 10 years old, and the 8-year-olds could do ollies and all I could do. The 8-year-olds could do flip kicks and all I could do was an ollie. Like, he clearly didn't work very hard, but he was like discouraged by the fact that kids younger than him were able to do tricks better than him, and so he decided to give up. No great story, no great person begins their story with "it was hard so I stopped." That's not how stories go. So now anytime I'm kind of feeling sorry for myself and like, why is this hard for me, or why is so-and-so doing well in training, or why did I lose to this person, I use that voice. I go ahead and just use that voice for my internal voice, and it shuts it up really well. Because the feeling I get of laughter and mockery off of that voice overrides the feeling I have of wanting someone to feel sorry for me. So that's my rambling stuff that I've been working on and thinking about, and I find it pretty funny, but I also find it really, really helpful. So I'm going to go back to training this afternoon and have a little bit of a harder session because I won't be the only one there. But I've been doing a lot better, I think, in sparring, being able to relax and not care so much about what that outcome means to my identity, rather than just, whether something's working or not. So that's what I'm working on. Talk to you guys later.